Our third presenter is Dr. Zhaoxi Zheng, who's a sociologist, thanatologist, and university educator. Zhaoxi's works center around the sociologies of health and illness and contribute to scholarship through empirical and methodological and philosophical innovations. So he'll present today on how can you put a price on it, contesting value and valuation in informal caring. So over to you, Zhaoxi.
Thank you so much, Beck. I'm just sharing my slides. Can everyone see my slides? Uh,
Yep, looks
yeah,
good.
I'm sorry, there's just one moment. Uh,
Yep, that's great.
yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to join and contribute to this year's CARES Knowledge Exchange. My name is Zhao. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at School of Social Sciences, UNSW Sydney. My background is in sociology, especially in the sociology of health and illness. I'm particularly interested in end-of-life studies, creative methodologies, social theories, and philosophy. So just to introduce a little bit about the team and the background of the study I'm going to present on is part of the Australian Research Council Linkage Project, led by Professor Emma Kirby, who couldn't join us today, unfortunately. This project explores informal carers' experiences and challenges throughout their trajectories of care, with a very special focus on how they exit their caring roles. Care endings may include a range of different contexts and situations, including where carers are no longer able to, or they are no longer, or they no longer wish to provide care for the care recipients. We're currently at the second stage of the project, where we're engaging with current carers who are facing impending end of their care or planning to do so. The caring role are very diverse. Their care endings are also incredibly diverse, including impending anticipated bereavement, care recipient transitioning into social institutions, and many other cases, as you'll see in the later findings section. A little bit background about how caring and how caring are valued. So it is no secret that informal caring is a role that requires extensive labor. We're talking about a suite of administrative, emotional, physical, and financial labor. Those labor involved informal caring experiences interfere with and also interrupt paid employment and other life opportunities and priorities. Um, that these activities are often considered to be part of the economic productivity that we assume. But there exists very limited recognition for informal caring and informal carers in Australia, especially when their caring ends. Informal caring is recognized by welfare payments, such as carers payments and carers allowances. These payments are often low in amount, and sometimes they work to exacerbate the already intense caring responsibilities through long waiting time, administrative requirements, and complex eligibility criteria. Very importantly to note here that many of those support services immediately stops when the care is considered to have ended administratively. The challenges and labor of care are amplified at care endings when carers face compounded challenges with very little financial and social capital to continue on with their lives, when many of them are still performing those caring responsibilities. So we're observing a quite we're observing a discursive and material tension about informal carers' value and valuation processes and practices. So, on the one hand, as a society, we theoretically and symbolically celebrate care's moral value. That is, care as a practice, it's considered to have strong collective community and relationality characteristics. They emphasize the fundamental human vulnerability and interdependency. It is also viewed to have potentials to counter prevailing neoliberal individualization to the extent that it's sometimes romantically framed as antidote to capitalism. But also on the one hand, on the other hand, informal care is extremely devalued when situated such activities together with paid employment or other forms of work. Feminist scholarship, for example, Nancy Fraser has observed the long-standing care economic divide, where informal care work simultaneously subsist the functions of formal economy, yet struggle for their value to be recognized, let alone prioritized in the so-called economy. So in this study, we embrace this tension and we explore how our experiences of care and care endings are valued. Here I'm briefly discussing two important concepts that are value and economization. Human geography scholarships have considered value as the capacity to be measured, and let us see how apparently incompatible value regimes flow from foundational choices about what is to be counted, visible, and present. We're reminded that no value is intrinsic. They all exist in iterative performances of comparison and social constructions. David Graeber considers three regimes of valuation that are moral, economic, and semiotic regimes of valuation. These conceptualization of value become especially important when we consider informal caring, something that is multidimensional and context-specific. We here draw on Levi's understanding of economization to situate informal caring, both conceptually and practically, in the contemporary capitalist practices. Economy here is considered through different regimes of valuation, including its moral, semiotic, and economic relevance. It ascribes cultural, moral, and financial worth to people, behavior, qualities, and objects. Economizations and economies are not necessarily market-based, nor do they always have to be monetary. In drawing on these two concepts, we ask, how do informal carers consider and situate the value of their care labor? And how are these regimes of valuation internalized and in tension with each other? In this study, we've engaged with 36 current carers who are in the process of ending their care. We have conducted 69 semi-structured interviews so far with them. These carers are recruited through our industry partners network, namely Carers New South Wales, Carers Victoria. In addition to the interviews, we also used the timeline elicitation methods so that participants could document and reflect upon their caring trajectory as ongoing and continuous rather than one-off. Interviews with participants also included follow-ups with them on different circumstances based on their different circumstances of caring and care endings. I'm happy to explain this methods a bit more, go a bit more in depth if we would like to know more. So our carers participants are acutely aware of their caring labor and the economic worth of these activities throughout their caring. They often emphasize the financial precarity associated with informal caring by highlighting the differences between informal and professional carers. Tanya, who's in her 50s and caring for her dad with cancer and husband with advanced dementia, makes such a comparison about the disproportionate recognition and financial return of informal caring. She said, I even had to sell my car a couple months ago because I couldn't get my father and husband in and out of my car. I had a gorgeous Honda that I loved, and I had to even sell that to get a stupid SUV I didn't want. The stuff that you give up just fade away as a carer, and then you're left destitute almost when it's all over. And yet carers workers get paid, minimum 60 an hour, and the carer got nothing when you give up a job that was $1,000 a week. Participants have elaborated on this juxtaposition between informal and professionalized care from aspects of choice and freedom. When operated under a market logic, professionalized care services and support workers' priorities are not are said sorry are not providing high quality care. Instead, they are valued differently. Professional care services are said to be poorly organized, lack accountability, and sometimes add to informal carers' labor. Professional carers are able to choose which care they partake and get reasonably reimbursed for their labor, whilst informal carers cannot. This participant, Nicole, in her 50s, caring for children with multiple intellectual and developmental disabilities, said, with the number of hospitalizations and my daughter in a feeding tube, we find it really hard to find support workers because care workers can be paid the same amount to take someone shopping into the movies as coming and looking after someone that needs the spell care and personal care that doesn't communicate. In that system, why would people opt to do anything more challenging or more complicated than taking someone to the movies? And I mean, it comes to the agencies as well. They'd rather take someone with less risk and less paperwork. They're running like a business. Carers' monetary valuation of their own caring work demonstrates complexity. On the one hand, many crave proper financial recognition when their welfare support ends abruptly at care endings. That said, they also actively resist to only value their care monetarily. Michelle, in her 50s, who cared for her mother with dementia, who is now in aged care, said, I think recognition, and she responded to my question about what's the most important to her as a formal carer for her current stage. She said, I think recognition, and that doesn't mean send me a certificate with a gold star on it. It means recognition of the situation of being in. Because of the choices I've made and the sacrifices I've made. Actually, I've saved the government bucket loads of money, if you want to put it in crude terms. I'm not suggesting giving us a millionaire's wage. I think carers are unsung heroes and completely taken advantage of by the government, by the health systems, by the communities at large. Um, it became clear that there is a strong moral and ethical component that is embedded in caring, highlighted by informal carers. Caring formally implies a strong sense of citizenship. This participant, who cares for elderly members of the community, described herself as being taken advantage of by the care recipient's family. She told me that the family has taken her kindness for granted, asking her to pack up the old lady's house, which of course is a big ask emotionally. She said, the family always offered to pay me, and I think, how can you put a price on such a major life-changing event? Like having to take your grandmother to a nursing home and close the door for the last time and leave the family home indefinitely. To give care a price means to confine care to a certain value, making it available to be measured and calculated. But like many other carer participants, the moral and ethical values of care resist convenient measurement and quantification. Moral values of care exist in discursive tension with its economic values. Informal care struggles for their care to be properly valued is aptly summarized by Amy here, who is facing multiple health issues after caring for her son with mental health issue. She said, I don't get the carer's pension. I don't get the healthcare card. I don't even have a part-time job. I'm still my son's carer. He called me several times a day and drop in. I'm still doing a lot of admin background advocacy work. Um, sorry, am I still sharing? There's a okay. Um, she said, "Oh, it was a slap in the face. I looked after my son, gave up my career and my financial stability, my health, my relationship, my social life, even neglected my older kids for a really poor, scummy amount of the carer's pension for a decade and a half, or however that long it was. So then literally it was just a phone call saying, "Oh, your son's moving out. Are you moving in with his girlfriend?" It was just, all right, then cutting off your pension at X date. This is a major life, it is a crisis stage, financially, emotionally, in every way it is, and it's just not an event. Through these findings, we're meant to demonstrate a crisis, not just a crisis of care, but a crisis on how care is valued. The value of care is messy. Carers grapple with this tension where they're sometimes forced to obliged to the economic framing of their care, and also reluctant to do so as it diminishes the moral aspect of their care. The different regimes of value on informal caring exhibit internal tension. Such tension manifest and are embodied by informal carers when articulating their care labor. We witness how market and economic logics come into financialized, professionalized, and institutionalized care. On the one hand, it embodies strong moral and ethical value. On the other hand, these frames cannot be conveniently encapsulated in the process of economization, thus further exacerbate the care economic divide. There is an urgent need for new modality of social reproduction where care is recognized as inextricably entangled in how we function economically. It is not until then we can produce meaningful recognition, compensation, welfare, and truly understand what the implications value of care is in a capitalist society. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Jashi. That was just a brilliant presentation on it's so complex. I love how you described it at the end around the complexity and the messiness and how we capture that value. So thank you so much for those insights. As we mentioned before, if you have any questions, please be sure to pop them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be able to pass them through and ask them. While we're waiting for that, Jiashi, I wondered if you might, because I've got a couple of questions. It sounds to me like there's an opportunity here in terms of public awareness, in terms of kind of the narrative that society more broadly has around valuing care. And I wondered if you had any insights on, practically, strategically, how we should be thinking about this. Is it about the media? I imagine it's a multi-pronged strategy, right? Do you have any thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So we actually asked our carer participants about this. In terms of kind of a similar question, what I asked Michelle, what kind of support that would support you the most as a carer who is situated at the end of your care? Um, this recognition our carers suggested comes from different levels. So first of all, a kind of policy level, where a lot of our carers are facing with very real financial problems because they have given up work. They have, in this sense, they don't have access to super, and that has in a way related to a lot of logistical, financial, and health problems. There's chronic anxiety in terms of many of our carers are in their 50s, 60s, looking to retire, but forced to continue work, even despite they cannot or don't want to. The other kind of recognition would come from the support organizations that they are accessing. It's kind of because of that gap in the policy or the gap in the existing practices that's resulting in their inability to access relevant support. I would imagine the third level of that recognition would come from the media and public in terms of recognizing carer a bit more in terms of the the intensity of their labor, the kind of complex system that they're navigating through,
Mm.
and also the niche details in terms of achieving what a good care looks like for their recipients, their loved ones. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
this is quite
Yeah.
multi-dimensional. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes really clear sense that there are these different layers to it, right? There's this policy setting, there's the recognition from, service providers and health professionals, and you're right, and then media and broader public sentiment, I guess.
Mm.
Okay, one other question, and I do know we are running a little over for a break, so I will give everyone a quick stretching break in a minute. But I actually have never heard of the timeline elicitation methods before, and I wondered if you could give us a bit more detail on what that methodology is and what it seeks to kind of achieving. Because yeah, I'm really curious about how you actually utilize it.
Thank you. So with the timelines, is incorporated within overall design. The study, what we essentially ask is for participants to draw a timeline, is part of the creative methods. But we ask participants to do that in their own format. There's no set format of what a timeline should look like. Participants have provided us with various formats of timelines. Some used pure texts, some just wrote us a story. Some drew us a very linear timeline. Some drew us timeline spirals, very complicated in visually. So we use this method to encourage participants to think about their caring trajectories. And as we will all know, in informal caring, those timelines and trajectories are not always linear. And they are iterative, they're complex. So this research methods allows our participants to acknowledge that and to demonstrate that to us. Also, what we ask, so as I mentioned, we follow up with those participants depending on their caring situations and context. If they are available and willing to, we ask them to do another timeline, say 3 to 6 months later after the first interview, and when we engage with them for an interview again. So a lot of participants, some of our participants have done that, and so there's one I particularly remember. I'll be brief, but just to give us a bit example. So one participant in his first timeline said, "Oh, I've got multiple plans. There's the best case scenario for my mother. There's the worst case scenario." And after 6 months, when we follow up with him, he said, well, not none of my best case scenario or case scenario eventuated. It ended up somewhere in between. So as a research method, that kind of timeline allowed this kind of component surprise and flexibility, and for participants to demonstrate the complexity, especially involved in informal caring experiences.
That's so interesting. I think that that's such a great way to, capture in a non-interview, non sort of verbal format, capture those experiences, and also, I guess, help the carer themselves, the participant, reflect and give new insights into
Yeah.
what they're going through. Wow, that's brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Yashi. What a brilliant body of work that you're doing there at UNSW.